Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order also and start with adoption of the agenda.
So move.
Has everybody had a chance to look at that? Okay.
A second.
Been moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Agenda is adopted. It says here we need to elect officers for, I guess this is for next year. And we need a chair, and we also need a vice chair for the budget committee, so.
I nominate we keep New Cleaver as the chair.
I second that. You need to finish your sentence.
I'll move nominations.
Okay, this is gonna move quickly, we'll go like this. All right, vice chair, do I hear a motion?
I move we leave Dave in
Okay,
as the vice chair.
Dave Bunker's vice chair, all in favor, say aye.
So are you gonna say who opposed?
We could ask that question.
Aye.
Surprise, surprise. Okay, budget message. Let's turn the time over to Superintendent Johnson for a brief budget message.
I will try to make it brief. So has everybody received it? Yeah, received it. So in years past, I've read it. I don't really want to read it to you today. I just want to highlight a few points in it. We received news just in the last few months that tax revenue is trending above expected level, and the legislature just recently approved a $9.9 billion biennium. For those of you who are, many of you are familiar with all what that means, but it's such a large number, it's hard to get your head around exactly what that means. Last biennium, the 2 years we're finishing this second year. It was at $9.3 billion, so a $600 million increase. So $600 million seems like that would be sufficient to maintain services, but as we all know, we're living in a different world with prices and availability of things, inflation hurting us. But fortunately, we've been able to do a few things to maintain our service levels. So $9.9 billion combined with some of the other funds that we've received and generated ourselves will be sufficient to maintain our current staffing levels and service levels. So I just wanted to address the online school. I know that's been a topic of interest among the community, and the online school was started by consent of the board in January of 2022 as a pilot, and this fall we started a one-year program. And we wanted to meet the needs of families. We learned from others who were doing this. I was one who didn't really believe in online school because I always valued myself in person. But regardless of my own preferences, we saw during the pandemic that a lot of people needed that, wanted it, valued it. So we saw how it was happening across the state, and Mr. Hawkins and I worked diligently with the board's approval to start this. This year we ended up with 145 students. I think we're currently at 173. What are we total deal?
Yes, we're at 172 actually.
172. And so that has brought in a lot of revenue to our district and has helped us to be able to maintain that. Crystal recently, as we all know, Crystal's just fantastic at what she does. We appreciate her just being on top of everything financially. Notified us that federal funds that we pay a lot of our instructional assistance out of are declining. We don't understand the full reasons for all that. We do understand the migrant reasons. Students they've removed some students for qualification. So we had a $160,000 shortfall. So we have chosen to use some of the money from the online school to fund that, to continue those services to our students, to maintain current FTE. The school board approved on February 13th, 2023, to use the online school funds to hire a NISA virtual school administrator. We applied vote of 6-1 for the February 13th meeting. And so it does increase our administrators by 1 in the district, but we felt it was really important, as the board had said, also address that we need to assign someone to take the growing online school and do that properly, instead of Mr. Hawkins and I, being split in the duties we had also. And the funds for the positions, the administrator is generated entirely by the online school, so it does not affect any of our in-person or traditional services and FTE. So we also have state school funds, as we always do, Measure 98 for high school. We have ESSER 3 funds, which we are using to do the remodel of our HVAC system in high school. And so those are all helpful. The SIA also really helps fund things such as a district nurse, elementary school counselor, district level mental health specialist, and additional teachers. So I just want to express appreciation to the school boards over many years and for valuing fiscal responsibility and stability for this district, and appreciate again, Crystal's work. I appreciate Mr. Hawkins' work in the online school that has helped us bring in additional revenue to continue to serve our students and community. Thank you.
Darren,
Yes.
may I point out that the online school is on a 4-year contract, which is subject to renewal or
Correct.
disapproval.
Correct.
So,
Contract with whom, Pat?
okay.
So we're working with a curriculum and teacher provider called MyTech. The board at some points along the way had said, hey, can we provide this ourselves? Write our own curriculum, hire our own teachers, and some school districts are doing that. I look at Crane. Many of you know Matt Hawley out of Crane, is the superintendent there. That is a really large undertaking we chose not to pursue. So anyway, that would take years, and that's okay, if that's what it takes, but we chose to hire.
So the contract is between us and MyTech High?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I got another question. Crystal, I'm sorry, but I thought we were having Chromebooks, that's why I didn't have, or paper, and I don't have.
Would you like a budget?
Yes, ma'am.
I was gonna do electronic, but everyone was asking for paper, so I just said forget
I
it.
apologize, I thought it was gonna be the way.
That's okay.
I'm
I'm sorry.
glad you asked, thank you.
And the other thing I'd like to mention, that SIA funds
Yes.
are not set in stone. That is something that is subject to the legislature or, the powers that be. And so that is one of those funding sources that can go up and down, or it can disappear.
Thank you, Mrs. Mordock. And we do recognize, there are some purchases we've made out of the SIA funds because it's a new tax on businesses, as many of you know, who are business owners. That money at some point could go away or reduce. And so we've tried to fund purchases out of that, not personnel, but we've inevitably, like the majority of the budget, is personnel. And so if we do start losing SIA money, we will have layoffs of positions that SIA is funding. Mr. Jackson?
Okay. Any questions for Darren on that? So we'll just move into the budget review then. And I think there's a lot of questions that are waiting for the budget review connected to that. So we'll move on.
I guess that's.
Can I ask a question before you start?
Yes, you may.
So I've been on this for a while.
Yes.
I was on the board.
Can you talk a little
And I was on the board for years. I never really understood how. So we have the committee runs the budget. So as a budget member, it's my second year. What should I be? What's my responsibility here? Am I just?
I think to ask questions,
Budget member.
you the board, the school board is the official, but the budget board does approve the budget tonight. So you will vote on approving it too. All members, because we require a quorum to be here. So your duty as a budget board member is to ask questions, hard questions, that appear before the community and say, hey, how is our money being spent? Is that how we want it spent? More needed here, less needed there? So,
And just for the record, you're not required one way or the other to approve a budget on a certain
Correct.
day.
You don't have to prove it tonight.
No,
You're-
that's what, we have a whole calendar.
Yeah.
We have multiple meetings
Multiple
that are
meetings,
set up.
I showed my 25 years of doing this. There's very few that we were, not that I wouldn't like to do that, there's very few that we were able to have one meeting and say, it's approved.
if you don't approve it tonight, you get another dinner? Is that how this works?
I mean, my phone, but.
That.
So actually,
So I'm okay with asking any question I want.
Yeah, absolutely.
the only thing that, I don't think the last time was done first was when we had the middle school one, and the first time around, the budget got deflated, or pushed down. You were there, I think, the community members said no way, and we had to go back to it again,
I think the only thing you can't ask is, about wages for certain, individuals that work for the district.
But you can ask for generally salaries, percentages, that sort of thing.
Does that help?
Yeah, I'm good. I just didn't want to open my mouth and say something stupid.
All those questions that you didn't want to hear when you were a board member, those are the ones you asked tonight.
And then once the budget committee approves the budget, they recommend
Yeah.
That's
I
just
thought about that. I just didn't know my role was. I wanted to make sure I was clear. I didn't want to overstep or understep or whatever. So.
I believe you can also approve the budget contingent on the changes that you want. So you can approve it pending these changes, and then the board. Yeah, that's correct.
it, and then I go to work. Okay.
Officially, the board ratifies that their next meeting will be done tonight. And that would make ratification of it rather than, so that's the official word.
Sorry, May 4th.
All right. So Jared went over a lot, but what you have in front of you is our proposed fiscal year 24 budget for the entire district. Right after Darren's budget message, I made sure I put in some colorful graphs for Mr. Bunker.
Well, you can color that over here.
Mr. Hartley. Oh, Michael likes colors. Anyway, so these pie charts are just showing general fund. And so the first one is our general fund revenue, and it's just giving you an idea of, what makes up our revenue as a whole. So our state school fund is making up 66% of our general revenue, and then our beginning fund balance is 28% of our revenue for next year. Property taxes that come in make up 5%. And then we have investments, rent, tolls, fees, that's about 1% of our revenue, and then our common school fund is another 1%. So add those all together, you get 100%.
Correct me if I'm wrong, are we on the second year of the biennium?
This will be, currently we are, this will be our
Currently
first
we
year.
are, okay.
This budget will be year one.
Okay, so are they proposing 51-49 or 50-50, or do you know?
49.51.
49-51, oh, they're betting, things are getting better, huh?
Yeah, definitely worried about that.
Okay, thank you.
Anyways, the next page is our general fund expenditures. And so this just shows you what percentages we're spending our money on. So obviously salaries and benefits are our biggest expenditures coming from the general fund, followed by our purchase services, our contingency fund, the supplies, insurance, dues and fees, capital outlay, and then transfer funds, which what that is the funds that are in the general fund that we're transferring to other funds within this budget to operate, and we'll go through that.
So just a comment.
Yes.
I thought it was kind of interesting that the 66% we get from the state school fund about equals the salaries and benefits that we pay out.
That's got, I thought we were at like, when I was on board, we were 8% in so that's down quite a bit compared to normal, like that. First half of the salaries is just higher, right?
It usually is.
Usually.
So I will share this with all of you, I've shared this at our council, with our administrators, one of the things that I feel I've been blessed with is a blessing and curse, since my tenure as superintendent started in 2019, is I've been blessed with an abundance of funds, several funds, SIA funds, ESSER funds during COVID, right?
Yeah, that's
And so it has pushed our ending fund balance pretty high. I don't think we used to be at 20%, Dave, I don't know if you remember.
And that's the difference, our beginning fund
Yeah,
balance
we
is
were for a
large.
while, only because we were carrying it because we wanted to pay a school off. But once the school was paid off, then they dropped back down again.
That makes sense, like, yeah, your
So
customers
we've
buying
been
it off, it's
trying to-
really big, so it's taking 100% away.
So we've been trying to save for some large expenditures that we were coming from the high school HVAC.
Okay, so let's go to page one. I'll try to move as quickly as possible. Please stop and ask questions. So what you're looking, by Oregon budget law, I have to show, two years of historical actuals, our current year budget that we're in now, and then our proposed budget for next year. So that's what all the columns are that you're seeing. So I'm focusing on the proposed budget column for 23-24. That's what I'm gonna talk about tonight. So page one is all about our revenue. So all these numbers make up that pie chart that we just looked at. So, in this, the rule of thumb I've been told by ODE is to do a 3% increase on local tax revenue. And I know last year there was a little bit of concern about drought, and sometimes that can affect that. Our taxes are rolling in just fine this year, so I went ahead and just did a 3% on those taxes. I did adjust on interest on investments. Now, every month at the school board meeting, I talk about our LGIP account, and we gain interest on that account. And so, our interest rate went down so much, it was like 0.25%, well, it's back up over 2.5, I think, so I'm adjusting that to be more where the interest rates are. And so that's that jump in that number. You know, the biggest thing, I adjusted the common school fund, that went up a little bit. And I know everyone's interested in that state school fund number, so that 15.6 million, that is made up of our state school fund for our NISA on-campus students and also our MyTech High students. So state school fund of that 15.6, 14.2 of that million, 14.2 million of that is our NISA home on-campus students, and 1.4 million of that is MyTech High, and that is budgeted 175 students for next year. And we're hoping, of course, it's more than that. But right now we're sitting at 172, so I think it's an okay number to be paid for. Our common school fund went up quite a bit, so I adjusted that number. And then the beginning fund balance, I kind of didn't budget enough for our current budget, so last year our ending fund balance, which became our beginning fund balance for this year, came in at 5.9 million, and that budgeted 4.3. I tried to expend everything out through the end of June 30th of this year of what's gonna come in and what's going out, and I think we're gonna be at about 6.6 million for our ending fund balance, which then on July 1, which is this budget, becomes our beginning fund balance. And in the budget world, that becomes revenue. So, general fund budget, $23.7 million.
So Crystal, you're still on page one?
I'm still on page one, I'm sorry.
Okay. It looks like, if my math is close, that this year and next year, there's about 3.5 million difference. Is that about right?
Yes,
Okay. And
so
gonna
we're
talk-
making a, that MyTech High revenue that's coming in
Right.
for this year.
Right.
And then, our beginning fund balance was, bigger than what I budgeted, so
Okay.
that makes up the difference.
Okay, so when we get to the end of this budget, which is 70-some pages,
170.
the total amount, difference is gonna be almost $5 million this year than last year. I'm looking ahead, so I'm assuming that the $3 million that we're talking about in general fund right now is
Part of that, yes.
Oh,
Part of that, yes, correct.
thank you.
So that's the revenue, that's it for the general fund. We go to page 2, this starts breaking out our budget by school. So we start with elementary school. What I did in our system, we have, thank goodness, contracts with certified and like classified unions for next year's pay, what we agreed to. So I put that in the system, moved everyone up a step, gave them the increase that we already agreed to, adjusted all the benefits for that. So everyone's payroll has been adjusted according to the contracts.
So I have a question then. Because of one of the glaring numbers in every category when it comes to salaries is health insurance.
Yes.
We must have increased our portion of health insurance by a significant amount during negotiations.
We have
We have almost
certified,
$500 per employee.
I did not read my contracts, but that for certified, or no, classified, I know they're getting a big jump.
Okay.
I
Is
believe
that what you figured?
certified
Yeah, because
is
it's about
six.
$4,500 per employee over 9 months is $500. That's average, and I didn't take classified and certified and come up. I just realized that I didn't know that negotiations had been done, but I realized either we're doing this or negotiations have been done or price of insurance was through the roof.
Negotiations are done
Okay.
through 6/30/2024.
Well, it averages about $500 per person then.
So
What an
this,
average
this
is.
time next year, we'll be in negotiations again with both of these.
Oh, you only did it for 1 year, huh?
Did it for 2.
2,
Already
okay.
got 2.
That hurts. But anyway, okay, that's very good. And that answers the question of why.
So elementary budget, obviously salaries and wages went up. Going through the purchase services, the supplies, things were adjusted. We needed a little bit more, we overspent in consumables this year, so gonna take a little bit more there. Textbooks, you'll see, has dramatically dropped in each school. Because this year it was our intention to adopt a math curriculum. This doesn't sound like it's gonna happen before July 1, and there it is. Okay, it's going to happen, but we have a different way to pay for it. So I've lowered the textbooks accounts out of the general fund, those numbers, because we're gonna pay for that with different funding.
So let me explain that, just so everybody knows, if there's a question about what funding we're using. So the ESSER 3, ESSER stands for Elementary Secondary School Emergency Relief. So those were the stimulus payments that individuals got. Schools also got those, ESSER 1, ESSER 2, ESSER 3. So ESSER 3 was $3.6 million or thereabouts, and we had to use 20% of that on unfinished learning, meaning books, textbooks. So we moved that 20% from ESSER 3 to our textbook fund. So the rest will be spent on the HVAC at the high school.
So I have 2 questions concerning this page then also, one already answered. And it's a small number, but site council was $200, you budgeted $7,000, now you turn around and budgeted $7,000 again.
So what it is, Dave, the first 2 columns are actuals. That's what we spent those years. By contract, I have to budget 7,000.
Oh,
That's
okay.
in the contract.
Okay,
So
I
this
didn't
is what I
aware of that.
budgeted, but those are the actual ones.
Okay, that's fine, I didn't know that, I
Yeah.
just seemed like a lot of money to budget when you haven't been spending it.
And actually, those 2 years, remember, were just coming out of COVID, so, I don't think they were going anywhere really, that's what they use those funds for.
So the $110,000 in textbook must be in our rollover fund, beginning fund balance.
That I budgeted for this year that I'm
Correct.
not gonna use, yes, drops to my expense.
Okay, we didn't spend it someplace else and not on textbook.
No.
You wouldn't do that, or we'd be having this banding the meeting real quick, huh?
Right.
Very good, all right,
And
thank you.
then, we did budget to buy some new copiers for the elementary, that happened this year, so we don't need to buy them next year, so I adjusted that budget down.
Okay.
They don't need more copiers. Page 4 is our middle school budget.
Can we stop right there?
Yeah.
I don't know who did the middle school budget, but it's phenomenally done. All right, it really is. There's no glaring number changes, whoever did it did a great job. I don't know. Maybe you did them all, I don't know, but whoever submitted the numbers for middle
Mr.
school,
Weaver did it.
granted, it's only smaller than all the rest of them, I understand that, but it's phenomenally done.
That was Mr. Weaver. So really same thing with,
You big head.
same thing with the middle school budget. reduced the textbooks. They also aren't buying new copiers this year, so I removed that. Nothing out of the ordinary. Does anyone have any other questions? If we go to page 6, this is the middle school extracurricular budget. This is where we pay the, I don't want to call them stipends, extra duty contracts for sports.
Oh,
So that's what this is. In this budget contains some more coaches, a softball coach for middle school, a baseball coach, a girls wrestling coach. So that's the jump in the payroll.
So is that why there's no FTE?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I have a big question mark here. How come we have salary with no FTE?
So extra duty contracts don't have an FTE,
Right, okay, all
but we
right,
still have to budget for them, so.
all right, very good.
If we go to page 7,
You should have
the-
said coaching.
Right. This is the high school budget. I did have a question earlier that someone called and asked and said, Crystal, what's going on with wages? And so I looked into it because I'm like, well, did I miss something? We had a very good teacher retire, and the replacement was not as high on the salary schedule. So that's a lot of the reason why the salaries have gone down here. In fact, I think it was at least 2 positions. Maybe not retired, but changed, and the person that we replaced them with weren't as expensive. So,
So I think when that person called, I'm just reading their mind right now. I think what jumped out at them, and it's not just high school, but if you go to middle school and elementary, then you look under payroll costs, license salaries, there's very little increase percentage-wise. And so in my mind, I'm thinking,
what's going on?
well, yeah, I'm not the only one who's gonna ask that question.
Right.
when we look at the budget.
So we did shift a lot of, most employees on this campus are not just paid from one fund, they're split funded.
Right,
And so some things on my list we've shifted, it's still in the general fund, it's just paid out of a different account number now. So overall, the payroll, it's still there and it went up overall, but when you do look at it function by function, it looks a little funky.
Yeah.
So we'll come across some that you'll be like, whoa, that's a really big increase. That's where it tends to-
yeah, I'm sure the unions noticed this, so.
So is that,
Concerned about that.
so I'm on, actually, my question was on classified.
Mhm.
Because you're classified, you only expended 71,000, but you're budgeted 237,000 for next year.
Which page are you on, sir?
I'm on the same one we're on, am I not?
So,
I don't know. No, I'm sorry, I'm not,
You're
I'm
not
on the
on
wrong
page
one. My questions in my book here are not the same, because I thought I could have a Chromebook, so
Sorry.
we'll get to that later on. It happens to be with the general fund though, so we'll be there.
Well, and like on page 7, you're gonna question like, why do we have classified wages this year in the budget but not next year? And that's because that one IA is now, I believe that one got moved to the SPED budget that's in the general fund.
1 to 0 is not a problem, it's when you have $100,000 or $200,000 it makes it, that's where the questions lie, at least
I
for me.
understand that.
But you always have the answer, you're doing great,
I tried to.
Crystal.
No worries.
So if classified salaries will move to the SPED budget, what about my classified staff who are on SPED,
They're not paid for in that fund.
to somewhere else?
Mhm.
Okay, under secretaries.
They're paid from a different fund, they're split funded from different funds. I'm telling you, they're in there, I promise. Any other questions on high school budget?
I don't mean to not criticize it. When I called on the middle school doing a good job, I didn't say that everybody else did an okay job. So don't feel bad.
On page 9, this is the high school extracurricular budget. So these are the coaching salaries for that. I do not believe we added any coaching positions to this budget, so this is just the increase in wages. Jenna, though, did work with me and provided amazing explanations as to why the budget needs to increase. We went over budget, we're over budget this year in travel. We we traveled so much this year. We're over budget, the wages have gone up for the umps that we pay, and so we increased our budget. So I went over that with her in detail, and she also spoke with, the superintendents about it, so I put in what she requested, and
So how far does it fall under that 390? Is that what that is?
Yeah. so general professional services, that's not hires. Page 10 is our talented and gifted, so you'll notice there's payroll in our current budget this year and not next year. And that is because our assistant superintendent is partly paid out of the talented and gifted fund, and he will no longer be in that position next year. So his wages are now shifted to my tech high.
Oh, they didn't go down then.
I mean, they went down in this particular account,
Oh,
but they're later in the budget.
I had a big smiley face here.
I will make note though, we do have one teacher that has taken over the TAG program that she will be doing next year, but she's currently paid for an ESSER funding, and so once that funding runs out, she will need to go back into the general fund. So it's not there this year because I want it to be accurate of where we're paying our wages from, but anticipate that to go back up. Page 11 is our special education budget. This is probably one of the biggest account numbers that changed the most. As we talk later about our federal funding, we had about 2 federal programs, Title I-A and IDEA, which is special education federal funding, that the revenue's gone down so much, we now don't have enough funding to pay for some IAs, particularly 2 from Title I-A and 2 from IDEA. So those have been absorbed into the general fund under SPED. This is something we have to be careful about when it comes to special education, because we have a maintenance of effort. So what that means is we spend $1 million on SPED this year, we have to spend at least that next year or more. Or they'll start to cut our funding.
So my big question, Mark, right here, is why that's $100,000 increase in classified wages, correct?
Yes, because we went from,
Especially when you didn't spend the 71,000 of it, must have happened the last time, you're doubling it again. Is that because of that very reason you just gave us? You spent $71,000 this year, you budgeted 131, which is only half of your budget, but you're going to 237,000 next year.
well, no, so you're looking 2022, I'm currently in 23. So my 23 numbers
Yeah.
aren't actuals.
But you're increasing by $100,000.
Right, but I'm also adding 4 positions.
Okay, that's
Yes.
exactly what I'm saying, all right.
Yes. Our special education director, was budgeted in my current budget from this fund, but she's been moved to my tech high because she is now the director of special education in my tech high. Ryan, help me, this other title,
She's still the same title.
what she oversees.
Yeah, she oversees all the SPED students because we still have to manage the SPED students. We might take that like different, so.
They're managed separately from the regular MyTech High students?
Yes. Yeah, because they
And they're
different
funded
services and they have case managers, and she's also the case manager for all of my tech high students.
No, I apologize for not knowing this because I'm not on the board, so I have no idea what the contract is. But I'm assuming that that's part of the contract, that we have to supply something different.
Yes.
You know, that's a really good question. I appreciate bringing up this. Megan is dry out of this, but she's a online teacher. And works in special.
Love it.
We'll have connections, but she's an online special ed teacher. When I first thought, I was like, why would you do special ed online? But some parents want that. Many parents want that. A lot more than we know once we have some of that with our students.
How many do you have currently?
I don't know how many. We're working on testing somebody right now. It's not that many, it's like 10 to 12.
Okay, so do we have anything in plan in place if we get to the point where our special ed administrator cannot case manage the number?
We have a couple options we're looking at. We're ready for it. Does that make sense?
Okay, that's what I
So
want.
that's what I said, we have different avenues, it depends on the number. So.
We thought we talked to people who have experience in online special ed. So
Dave, do you have more questions?
No, ma'am, not on that page.
Does anyone else? Okay. On page 13, this is our alternative education, fund. Now, in the past, we have an employee that was paid out of this 0.85, so that's where she's currently, this person is budgeted for. However, I believe it is the idea of the district to add a alt school back on campus. And so what this budget for this year contains is 1 FTE for a teacher, and then in addition, that teacher would receive 1 IA. So that's the increase in this budget. It went from 0.85 FTE to 2.85 FTE.
So where's our problem now?
So did I thought it was down the hall over here. Where?
Sorry, I have a soft speaker. Where is our alt education right now?
So we're gonna put it in the old art building.
But where has it been?
We haven't had an alt school. We haven't
We
had.
put them, I think what our was here, we put them all back in.
There used to be a partnership with the ESD, it was housed in this building heading out of town, but that went away at some point.
So we're gonna start up our own school.
We're starting our own, we don't have options for our kids, we're trying to.
My memory must be different than yours, because it was in the all day building down there, and then we moved 2 doors down here by the bathroom, did we not? We housed them in here for at least 2 years. That's a while ago.
It's not-
Sorry, go
it's not
on.
different.
My apologies.
That just happened in the 10 years I was gone, so you're correct, I didn't know that, so.
Yeah, so we absorbed it in high school.
We absorbed them and then it kind of.
Yeah, now we're saying we meet again, so.
Our concern, honestly, is, I'd have, Mr. Jackman here as our high school principal, we're always worried about our high school grad rate. We want to offer these children, students an opportunity to finish high school, be able to move forward, and so, all school will be great.
So the alt school, are we looking like GED track, or are we looking at like some diploma status?
It's not your general limits, it's not your GED track, it's not your high need special ed, it's more your unmotivated bunch of learners struggling with the same standards and their students.
But so are they getting a,
Slosel for credit recovery.
are they getting a diploma when they graduate? Is
They're
that-
working towards a really.
They can get a diploma, yes.
Our intention is to offer all of that, right, for whatever the students, so.
The all day standards haven't changed yet, regardless of where they're being placed. Because they've all been offered they've always been offered a diploma. They've offered, if they don't get the diploma, they're still allowed to walk. We went through that, got sued over that, so,
Okay, on page
no, but they have the right to. Anyway, we got sued over it, trust me, I know.
I'm gonna continue on. Page 14 is our career technical education fund. We have a contract with the ESD to provide a TBT service. And so that's what that $56,000 budget line item is. That's our contract with it, not their ESD, when they invoice us.
That's just under the CTE, that's not the whole program, right? That's not the whole services.
Treasure Belt
Yes.
Tech is our
Right, okay,
certification.
I just wanna make sure
A
that.
lot of our welding certifications.
So, critical on that, administrative salaries, supervisor salaries. Who is that?
We're on page 15.
Are you on page 15?
I am on
Okay.
page 50, is that the right page?
Yep, you're fine. So page 15, I called it this online school, but we all call it My Tech High, that's what this is. So administrators, that is Mr. Hopkins, and then half of our, 0.5 of our SED director. And then the supervisor salary line, that is a 5%, let's say, 5% of My Tech High. You're right, you're not telling me word this correctly, it's so confusing. But it's a percentage that goes to certain employees
Right.
that's paid out at the end of the year.
So half of the 172 is Mr. Hopkins,
No, 1 so I'm 1 point, she's 0.5, so 66% would be me.
okay.
So that's
Doesn't
the position,
really-
the
that doesn't-
position that they open, they wouldn't do you. Okay.
Well, I'll think about it. Thank you.
that's just your base salary, where's all your benefits?
Keep reading, we're on the page 17.
That's all we do.
On that page 15, purchase services, that 897,000, that's what I'm estimating we will have to pay to my tech high based on our contract with them, that's we pay 60% to them. We pay 40%, so that is based off 175 students. So obviously if we get more students, that numbers will be more than we pay my tech high. And then also, threw in just for next year, because we're trying to build a program, just a little bit for, I need to get a laptop and a desk. I'm on the floor. And I'm gonna do some advertising, things like that.
So that's the supervisor, sorry, isn't a person, that's just a bunch of people.
It's two. No, I'm sorry about this.
So instead of, so we have registrar, we're having to work with additional paperwork. So it's people in the district office, it's not Mr. Hawkins, right? Some of our district office people here looking at who receive 1% or whatever to compensate them for the extra time and paperwork and effort required to manage more students, right?
And I should note on that budget line item, that 1%, say it's $1,000 of that $1,000, PERS is coming out of that $1,000, so the district isn't paying on top of that, which comes out for those 4 people.
So back to my original question on page 15 at the top, administrative salaries, doesn't represent 1 or 2, that represents more than
1.5.
So administrator salaries is
Yeah,
very,
because
very
it's
top line.
173,000.
That's
his
1.5
salary.
people.
Half of it.
Okay,
Don't line
Sorry,
up.
that's excused.
okay.
Did I hear right? We have 4 staff supervising my tech high kids,
Not kids, just
or
the,
students.
yeah, the paperwork, the processes, the communications, emails, lots of paperwork. So one of the things we have to do with My Tech High is get an inter-district agreement. So we have people, and trying not to name names, but we have people who handle that paperwork back and forth with Portland Public School or Hillsborough Public School. Students from those districts are coming here with paperwork, tracking, communications back and forth. And it's extra work for our people, and we wanted to acknowledge their work by paying them something. Because it's in addition to what they're doing.
So Ryan, could I ask, before we do this, so the balance of your salary is paid in another line item somewhere else in the budget?
He's a 1-0. This is 1-0.
He's 100% in this one.
I know I'm redundant, but I.
You're okay. In the budget this year, he's paid from like 4 different funds, so this just streamlines it.
So, okay, that's what's changed in the budget, yes, thank you. Thank you.
So that writing, you just answered it all, good job.
Yeah.
Here we go. Page 16, English as a second language. Here I've got a note, we are adding an elementary EL teacher, so that is in this budget. With the benefits at the 1 FTE. And everything else, the purchase services, the travel, consumables, kept that all the same. Any questions on that one? On page 17, student safety, this is our SRO. So that's the only thing that's paid out of this account. And I've increased it because he'll get a raise July 1.
What percentage of time is that based on? Always, it was before, percentage of time, is it not still that?
It's, yeah, they actually invoice his time card of when he's
So
here,
he's
so-
supposed to be 100% with us then, with it that.
With the exception of not summer.
With the exception, I understand an emergency in town too, I understand those things, but it used to be there was a percentage involved, but now it's 100% then. So with the exception of.
100% of when he's here. I mean, I could call, I know what you're saying, I get it.
Yeah,
I can call and ask a question, I
if he's not needed somewhere else, I think he's.
Well, that's what okay, because it used to be 50%. In other words, there was only here 50%, 50% was the city, if you got called, then our 50% got deleted, basically. But now it's 100% SRO. correct? Okay,
What you're saying is time, is basically time cards.
Yes.
Yeah.
Basically just-
I get a
Gotcha.
time card
Okay.
in the bill,
Means you're
Okay.
getting paid when it's done.
all right.
but I do not get a time card in the bill during the summer. Or the first 2 weeks of August.
That's fine,
Okay.
that's fine.
On page 18, this is our general fund counseling budget. So,
Can I ask one more question? I hate to be the guy that goes back, because I hate going back all the time.
yes,
Just call me Don Buller, great guy, by the way, but he was always 3 steps behind. So, on this,
What page?
I'm still on the SRO thing. Just one page, it's not 2 or 3, it's only one page.
okay.
So on the SRO deal, if we're 100% of that, then with the exception of summertime, correct? What, is that under contract with the city that way, or is it just? I mean, what does the contract with the city say with that? Are we just paying and not really having?
I don't know.
Oh,
I haven't read it recently.
okay,
I haven't seen an updated contract. I haven't seen those.
okay,
Those are good questions and we'll need to do that.
very well.
Alrighty,
Sorry.
but that is the one thing I would never want to see. I know there was Senate bills trying to do away with SROs. I think it's a really good thing.
Oh, I agree totally, and that's why I want it in concrete. I say, well, I mean, if there's no contract, the city can just say, oh, well, we don't wanna do this no more, and,
Keep charging.
yeah, well, or not even just do it. You need an SRO. We hate to think that we do, but we need an SRO.
We have a school board member who is highly supportive of this, but you're right. I appreciate the impetus that you're putting on this so that we can read the contract. We'll do that.
Okay,
Sorry.
you're okay. Page 18 is our counseling budget. I ended up moving one FTE counselor from SIA to the general fund counseling budget. And that's because of, when we get to that fund, the funding wasn't there to pay that counselor. So that's moved back to the general fund. So it's 2 counselors and then the 3rd counselor is paid from SIA. That's in the budget later. And then their benefits. And I tried to adjust their budget based on their spending, so that's why there's a little bit of movement in the different line items. Dues and fees, we budgeted $850, we didn't spend nearly that, so I tried to cut that out. I know it's not very much money, but I tried my best to.
So SIA is mandated by SIA, is it not, counselor? The SIA program mandated for
We have-
counselor?
We had to let it plan. We had to engage the community and what the community wanted to see.
Okay.
So that's where that came from.
Okay.
On page 19, our curriculum development account. Our assistant superintendent is currently paid 50% out of that fund, but he will no longer be next year because of the reasons I said. So that was the change in that account. Makes sense?
Yep.
On page 20 is our classified staff development. This is in our contract with our classified staff. We must have this money in the budget for them to use. Years prior.
Can you tell me what they're after?
I think professional development, going to different meetings. I've seen it in like kind of go to Pendleton or something.
No, that's why I said, what are they after?
Well, they didn't, and remember when we were in COVID, no one went anywhere, so. On page 21 is our library account. So going through the budget, so in our current budget, we have a 0.4 salary, licensed salary. So I looked who that person was, and that person shouldn't have been coded to that, so that's a mistake I didn't catch last year in the meeting. So I moved that person to the correct building, because he's not a librarian. So that is cleanup on my part, that's why those license salaries are not there anymore. Librarians, library expenses. Nothing jumps out at me for that budget. On page 22, our assessment and testing. 0.25 of a employee is paid out of this. and just an increase in their salary and benefits for next year's budget.
What is other instructional services?
So that can be, well, Jared, do you wanna answer, or should I answer? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, I'm trying to remember.
So that can be things like online programming that we purchase, or online testing. Obviously, well, 2 years ago, we didn't spend any of that money. And I couldn't tell you off the top of my head how much we've spent of it this year. Is that something that,
Well, I'm just curious, because it looks like we didn't use the money for 2 years, so that's all.
There was one year where they suspended testing, right? And then last year they did, we resumed the testing, but it was full testing last year or partial testing? It was full last year, it was partial.
I mean, like the IEPs that we purchased before, the state had made for free, right, all of the resources, and so we no longer have to purchase those. So that's where you'll see that.
page 23, instructional staff development. This is probably over.
I actually have a question, because my 22 and 23 say why, it looks like they're the same thing.
22 and 23.
My exact question says next page, why again?
So, you're saying 22 and 23 are the same?
Yes, as far as, how you have an instructional staff development one before. You're not?
That was last time.
Classroom. Yeah, okay. I heard instructional, I'm assuming, I hate it, but that's not what that means. Okay, all right. That's not the same. Gotcha. Screw me up on that one.
I know a lot of people will be interested in page 24's budget, that is our board budget. Things to note in this budget, I've increased the audit services as we've had to seek a new auditor and the prices are more expensive, so I adjusted for that. Also adjusted for legal services. I got that number from Mr. Johnson. Do you have questions about that?
I do, the whole page full.
Okay, consumables, we did spend, we're a little over budget this year, more, a little bit, so I increased it. The consumable budget in the board account, that's where, all the stuff for the, classified meeting appreciation weeks, that's where that comes from, so that's why that number's so high. Dues and fees, liability insurance, I don't know why I budgeted $5,000 for this year, we did not spend $5,000, so I reduced that. But your questions, please.
As a non-board member, I do not know why we went from 15,000 to 160,000. Are we being, my question is, are we being sued or do we anticipate being sued? Do we need that much more?
So that was, you read the paper, I'm sure, about the migrant Title I investigation, so, I've spoken with the board at length about this, the board, did make some, move for us to hire some legal counsel about that. So, what do we have, 160,000 here for next year, nothing yet.
I don't know, I fully understand that, Darren, I really do. The number would be depending on how much people want to push it and everything else, I understand that.
So the concern was, I mean, the legal counsel that we hired is for the district, right? Protect the district's name, the district's obligations, and so not the individuals, any individuals who may be, that's their on their own.
Okay, so that was my third question, because I hear, are we being sued? Do we anticipate being sued, which you've already covered? My third one is, do we have insurance for the board and those individuals?
Well, we do have insurance.
We have officers and directors insurance, right, for the board themselves, correct? Okay, are the individuals who may or may not have been responsible, are they also covered under DOD?
I don't know that.
I have an email in asking that question.
Oh, then that would make a difference on how your budget is. Okay, very good. Well, answer those questions I had.
budget committee members insured?
Our budget committee members.
That's a really good question.
They don't need
I
to
think
be.
it's a fair question.
No, they don't need to be,
I don't think you have to.
because we're not ratifying the budget.
I know you don't have to be.
No, what he's saying is right, like, you'll approve the budget, but it's not,
The liability.
the board, when we approve it, the board meeting.
Correct.
When it's actually,
Jeremy's right, exactly.
So if Dave gets sued for asking too many questions.
I'm gonna get kicked out. Right?
That's why we got legal counsel.
so we think that we're gonna need that much more next year.
That was a total estimation.
And
I don't
what are the-
think so.
What are
because-
the negotiation services?
So that's when we start negotiating with certified classified. And so in the past, we've had a representative
Yeah,
of the
it's
district
called,
that lets do
yeah.
that.
Ryan and I did it last year, the board, it was us that did it last year, so we didn't hire outside services, it was OSBA. And they actually ceased that service the last cycle that we did negotiations.
Really?
So I'm just gonna say Hopkins is a pretty dang good negotiator.
Really, OSBA doesn't help
They
you out?
haven't had that service in the winter.
Yeah, I like that. Oh, yeah, that was good news.
Chris, may I ask a question?
They do everything that's going on in the state. Exactly. Exactly.
That's when I says year to date.
What was the question?
How much?
How much we spent on legal services this year? I know the first 2 months.
They were expensive the first year.
And I take it you didn't use OSBA, you hired outside counsel, based on kind of what you said.
Correct.
Okay.
They're expensive.
And your email, $50.
$400 an hour.
Yeah.
Depends on how much.
Exactly.
That's true.
To answer your question, we've currently spent $75,002, and that was as of March 31st.
As of March 31st.
So we don't have legals billing yet.
We did just get,
$1,000.
March was 9,000.
March was $9,000.
that's March, it's okay. Sorry.
$75,000.
We have spent 75,000 on these. And that's through the end of March, so we'll have April, May, and June
On this bill.
on this one, not the budget we're talking about, but on our current budget, yes. Sorry.
And will that change then our beginning funds balance? Because more expenditures are.
Right. Right, so if we overspend in one account, let's say that we've underspent in consumables, it could be a wash. But if we just keep overspending in every single account, we're eating away at all of our accounts, and then eventually it seeps into our contingency, and that's what we really, really, really don't ever want to touch, right? Because that's our emergency. Ultimately, when the fund balance becomes our beginning balance. So that's. More questions?
Well, you answered them all, between the three of you.
On page 25, this is our office of the superintendent budget. So this has the superintendent's wages as 0.7 because he's split funded as well. And the supervisor salaries, that is his executive administrative assistant's wages. That's her new title I gave her. With their benefits, and then purchase services, travel, consumables.
So if the salaries and wages, this goes up 9% between this year and next year, that doesn't necessarily mean that one individual gets 9%, one individual gets 9%, it could be 12%, whatever. Because there's two.
Questions on that budget?
What's the out-of-district travel and then the one that says after students?
So out of district travel, actually a lot of people travel from this account, to go to conferences. Like Darren's executive administrative assistant. And then the one for travel, that's like when we're going to state, or districts, and we need travel money for that when the superintendent travels. So that's kind of the difference.
Oh, so the students is when he goes for student activities on
That makes sense. Page 26 is Office of our Principals. Says we move into federal programming and talks about that. Title 1A is a program that we're not gonna have as much funding. I got to spend a lovely 3 days with a team of ODE people a couple weeks ago here, and I learned a lot, and they did ask if any administrator would pay for federal Title 1A, and I said yes, and they said it would probably be a good idea to be proactive and let's not do that, that's not a thing, so. So this budget right here has a 0.7 FTE of a vice principal that was taken away from Title 1A and put into the general fund
Where are we at?
from page 26.
So what's the FTE then
Tell me what you just gotta get in.
for this one, Crystal?
On 26,
Yeah.
the total of nine FTE.
And that,
So, and it's principals, vice principals, and then different office managers.
okay,
But then the office managers is what funded as well, so that's where we're getting all the funds.
but the salaries and wages is represented by 9 different.
Right, yes. So what I said, Michael, was, 0.7 of a VP, vice principal, was paid from Title 1A. And since our funding has gone down, that 0.7 has been moved into this budget. On page 27, I thought this might be the best place to put a new federal programs director. That's why everything is zero, because we haven't had that in the last couple of years. So that is just salaries and benefits for 1 FTE.
Mr. Murray, yes.
So that's a new position.
So the new position is the online school director, right? So because Ryan had so much experience with that, we kept him as the assistant superintendent, and removed a lot of his responsibilities, still kept some in order to be the director of the online school because he had so much.
Matt will be sharing some of that.
Matt will be good. Yeah. So I know it looks like Matt is the new person, but the position, it's the position that's new. The position is the online school principal. We gave that to Ryan because he has experience with it and knows what he's doing. A lot of Ryan's responsibilities are not going to Mr. Bird. As well as some for some.
So this position
It's a what?
This position is one guy, and you can't, this is where I get fishy, what I can ask and what I can't ask.
Just don't say names, please.
So this is one position. This position, Ryan's, or this is Matt, whoever is under that position?
This is
I
the
don't know.
federal.
This is the federal, so
Program.
that's all he's doing is the federal programs?
He's doing some HR too.
Some HR as well.
So if the board will remember, I shared this with you at the last board meeting. What responsibilities people will have, because there was some concern about what people would be doing. So,
Is that the completed form though that you gave us? Because I thought you said it wasn't quite.
well, it wasn't complete because we hadn't hired an elementary principal yet. But as far as duties, yes.
But it is a new position.
Yeah, that position is new. I mean, I know sometimes it's hard to follow that, but Ryan's duties went to him.
Yeah. Some of the other responsibilities are shifted into this new position.
I didn't hear that.
I say, the new position is absorbing some of the other responsibilities.
Yes. So Ryan was in charge of HR. He did all of HR before. We have removed HR from him and we've split it to our, Gina White, our special ed director. She's gonna be director, and Matt Murray will be assistant director of HR. I mean, I look at what Hawkins did Mr. Hawkins did as far as negotiations, as far as all of all of the HR issues that come our way. There are a lot, working with unions and the discipline of teachers and issues that have complaints, that have to be investigated, that have to be documented. It's a really extensive job. And
I would say the easy way to think about it is the district office is losing a 1.0 community going through that position. So we're putting a person all the jobs still need to get done and they will be done. So that's kind of the easy way to.
Well, and Crystal said something about the department recommending that we back out of Title I.
Yeah, ODE recommended
Oh, ODE,
not
we don't
having
pay
an administrator be
Yeah.
from.
So we're shifting some of that.
That's Title 1C, that's.
what
1A.
is the poverty and growing. It's all focused on the elementary schools. 1C is the migrant.
They've really been a full one
Yes,
extra
we
piece
have
of
been doing
programs.
that for a long time. We're not able to do it, so we moved it around in there because she's not going back to construction kids. Shut up.
Per assignment.
Can we go to page 28? So that's the business office budget. This is my biggest wish. Best budget ever. So this contains 2 FTEs that are sitting in this room. With all of the new laws that are being put in with the Oregon paid leave that starts this September, that will drive both of these people in this room probably to walk out the door.
out yet?
No.
Oh.
We were told we could budget for a 0.5 person to help us, because I don't know how much more we could do it unless we move in here, and I don't want to live here. So this budget does contain a 0.5 FTE additional compared to years past, and the benefits for that person.
So that, I have to be careful how I say this, but that secures you being here. Because I'm all in favor of it, if it is.
Both of us, yes.
So you don't drive people crazy.
And that's on camera.
Yeah.
Christy, I just.
You committed.
So Crystal, it's a 0.5 increase.
Yes.
I wanted a 1 FTE, but I was told no.
You can everything. I thought it was a win. I don't know. She worked
So is there a 0.5 somewhere that
at the top.
At the very top,
Very top.
page 28, classified wages, that 0.5.
Oh, it's the other,
Okay, got it.
We're
Okay.
proposed 23, 24.
Now, is this a person going to be full-time, or is this a part-time just in here?
Half-time is just here.
Oh. Dun, dun, dun. I think let's continue talking in the budget and maybe I can help you guys with that later. But in this particular budget, it would be half a person, but I want a full person. Okay, that just happened.
Propose it, can't be even.
Okay, page 29, 30, 31, and 32, I'm gonna kind of condense this. This is all maintenance. So this is our maintenance director, supervisor, I guess is his title, and all of his staff. The difference in this budget from this coming year to current year, we did have a custodian pay point something
1.5.
out of a federal program. And so that has been moved into the general fund. Increases here, obviously electricity, natural gas, water, those are big, huge increases every single year. And if we didn't have power, we couldn't live, so. Other than that, PACE insurance, they did say an 18% increase again this year. So we're trying to budget that big increase, just keeps growing.
will the new HVAC system be a little bit more energy efficient?
Yes.
I
Will.
just
Well,
thought
if it's
it's
not running heat and air conditioning at the same time, will definitely save us.
What if it's 70?
So,
the windows
And
and
not
the
it was that way.
But if you've noticed, if you looked out the back of our track, between the high school modular building and the track, they're starting to unload materials in preparation for that construction project.
When I started to see the schools out.
Yeah, the day after Memorial Day.
Dave, do you have questions? I see it.
No, that's all right.
Okay.
It's a personnel question more than a budget, so I'm not gonna answer.
Oh, my goodness.
I'll ask Ryan later.
Page 33, now this is our transportation budget. And I kept it at 12 FTE for drivers, and then we have our supervisor, transportation supervisor, who's split under this all. But I think when I did the current budget this year, I guess I thought we were just gonna travel to the ocean a lot, cause I think I over budgeted, so I brought it back. Let's reel it in a little bit. So that's the decrease there. Bus driving, budgeting is so hard, because you just, trip pay is different than route pay, which is different, overtime and all that stuff. So this is my, I feel like a really good, better guess than last year. If that makes sense. This is where we pay our fuel from, and I'm just praying that fuel prices kind of stay where they're at.
You
and we'll
keep
be
that
okay.
up, will you? That praying business.
Oh, boy.
So, and that liability insurance, that increases, coming from the company telling me what it could be or will probably be. And then on page 34, this is our tech budget. So current year budget, we have one tech supervisor, one tech assistant, but 0.5 of them. And the other 0.5 was from the federal program, so that's going to go back into the general fund. So 2 FTEs, all their benefits. And then I kept their budget the same. What we're really trying to focus on, and I don't want to misspeak, but everyone's computers are getting really, really old on campus, and so we're trying to start replacing teachers' computers.
And you have to have a cycle for that.
Page 35, this is our post-retirement health benefits. It increased because we did have a teacher retire that was eligible for that benefit. And to my knowledge, I think we only have one more employee that is eligible for this benefit that has not yet retired.
Yeah.
On page 36, you're gonna just see this humongous number and you're gonna go, what the heck, I'm gonna explain it. So this is, page 36, this is our transfer of funds. So this is money that's gone into the general fund, but we need to send it elsewhere to go support our other programs. So this year, 573,000, next year over 2 million. And you're gonna say, why? And I'm gonna tell you. So we support our SMILE fund, which is Fund 286. That's a partnership with OSU. So OSU gives us money if we have input money. So some of that money is going to SMILE. The board also gives away $5,000 worth of scholarships every year. That comes from the general fund. So that's in that transfer amount. We also transfer money to our bus replacement fund to build that fund to buy new buses. So there's money in that $2 million for that. And then the biggest thing is a transfer to our Fund 440 for our high school HVAC project. So our ESSER 3 funding is not enough money to cover that project, so we got to fund it somewhere else. So that's coming from the general fund. But I didn't want to keep that money in the general fund because I didn't want maintenance to say, oh, we've got $2 million to do whatever, because that needs to go to the high school project. So if we transfer it to Fund 440, then I can track it better, make sure we're not overspending, and it's just for the high school.
So how much of the 2,075,000 is already anticipated going to most of it?
Oh, the 2,075,000? Yeah, all of those things I just talked about, that makes up the 2 million.
So there's not a large balance of anticipated?
No.
So was there one up on the board, we had like 5 different funds that did capital accounts.
We did, and since then the board has
Right,
merged.
consolidated one. And we have money, I didn't go through
So when we get to Fund 440, we have a balance in there
That is
of
a-
about 700,000, not
That
million.
would
Woo! So there is some money in there, but there's so many other projects that we need to start working on campus. I did not include that 700,000 to go towards the high school
One
project.
time, pulling this out of the general fund to fix the HVAC.
And a new roof.
That building is 1976. and
No, I
the
get it.
The HVAC's original.
I just never seen it.
So I have big letters on this one.
Oh, what page are you on?
I'm on the same page, I'm not going back to where you guys left me. So,
Okay, go.
I'm on the same page on this $2 million thing.
Okay.
So, is this, what's the auditor gonna say about this? Cause I remember one point in time, that when we transferred funds like that, a big, and then created your accounts out of, the auditor went through the roof at us. No?
Unless
Why
I'm
not?
very
This
here.
is, this is the simplest way to do it legally, right?
When it's budgeted, it's
It's budgeted.
such
Right.
an easier avenue.
So that's why you
than-
did it now, cause I got the word legal written right here too, that's why you did it now instead of trying to do it later, right? Alright, very well, that answers my question.
And I think under the law, as long as you have that, so if there's $2 million there, you don't know when you're gonna transfer it, but it's gonna go here, it's gonna go there, it's gonna go there. I think under the audit,
Okay,
that's fine.
that's what I was making sure, thank you. I should have known better, you had it figured
Of
out.
course. Okay, page 37, now this is our contingency fund, I've increased it to 2.5 million. So you just have to look at this fund as worst case scenario, we spend every single dime in the general fund, but this will have 2.5 million at the end of the day, at the end of the year. If that makes sense.
Go ahead, Bill.
And that becomes your ending fund balance, which becomes your beginning fund balance next year.
Right. And so if we don't spend in all these accounts that we've budgeted, that money, those balances, and our contingency fund will drop to our ending fund balance, which then becomes our beginning fund balance.
And Crystal, that amount is part of the 28% beginning fund balance in your pie chart, right?
Yes.
Yes. No?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
You can look at it that way, it's,
Well, I mean, you're carrying over 28%,
right.
but
So
of
we
that
can say of that
28%,
28%, 2.5 of it is our
you
contingency.
can't spend it.
Right.
Thank you.
And so page 38, that's just the total of our general fund budget, so 23.7 million. And I know that was really long and step by step, but it's really important to understand it.
I can remember a time when, we miscounted one time, we didn't get any funds for April, May, and June. And so, anybody who hollers at you about, yeah, it was the first year I was on the board. We had, it was a miscount on our numbers to the state, and they pulled all of our funds for April, May, and June. And we went through that contingency of what we paid April, May, and June on. So don't ever let anybody talk to you about not that big contingency that we need to spend it someplace, because that is your savings account, so to speak. What year was that? Well, Dawn was still here. so-
Dawn was still here.
Dawn was still here, whatever that was.
I know what it is.
I don't know if you guys have been reading the article, so there were like 20, don't quote me on the number, but like 23 school districts that their audits did not get finished by the deadline, and there are still schools, I believe, to this month that have not received their state school fund. And so that's when your contingency comes in, because
I was
we
gonna
have to
say,
have money.
in that case, that's many months. I don't know if 2.5 million will carry us that many months, right?
It would,
No,
it would,
no.
it might get us 2 months.
Well, you could probably remember that's when the whole, that, and then it started from there, went into the bad years of funding, where we
Right.
got rid of 22 or 23 teachers at that time, and, yeah. It went from bad to worse real quick.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so we're gonna
money
shift
is good when it comes to this.
from general fund, we're done talking about that, now we're going into all our special revenue funds, which are federal dollars, state dollars that need to be separated from the general fund by law.
So, on page 39, this is our Title 1A. So we all know our elementary school is a Title 1A, so these funds help fund that building. I've adjusted, my notes are, I've adjusted the revenue for ODE's estimated allocations for next year, which are less than what we've received this year. And so page 40, this is where I pulled administrator's salary out and put it to the general fund. And let's see, I did budget, we are keeping 7 IAs and 1 teacher in that fund. It also with these funds, this funds our after-school program at the elementary school. Pays for our bus drivers for after-school transportation, because that's an additional bus route.
Instructors.
And then, yes, and then salaries for the people working the after-school program.
Okay, Crystal.
Go.
Is there not a legal requirement to have an administrator for 1A?
I don't know if there's a legal
There is.
requirement, but we have one, we're just gonna pay that person from this fund,
So,
Okay,
if that makes sense.
yeah, that does make sense, but I wanna know the legalities of it.
I'm gonna direct it to Mr. Johnson.
Okay?
so due to the recent 1C investigation, Margaret, it has shined the light on a lot of our practices, saying that previously ODE had approved, so none of us knew that they were wrong, they were approving it, but they have, I think Crystal has talked about having to move people out of certain accounts, because we're not supposed to pay certain people out of these accounts, so the administrator is not supposed to be paid out of 1A. So we have an administrator over it, but the direct services to students are.
So you're mandated to have someone over, but you can't pay them out.
I think maybe,
My son would
Because
I
that
think
person
maybe
that's
the
over
issue,
budget should be paid out.
I think maybe the issue that they saw, or it's not really even an issue yet, right? This is just guidance that they gave you that, like, be proactive, Crystal. Is that maybe 0.7% of this person's workday isn't just Title 1A, so how is that really, like, is that really budgeting
Maybe if it was,
fiscally responsible?
if it was 0.3, maybe they would have been okay, I don't know.
But the problem that we're facing is we don't have enough funding to pay for that person anyways, so let's just not try to push it, right, and let's just get them out of there, right?
Okay,
Look at it.
except for years and years and years, the narrative has been,
I
we
understand.
have this top-heavy administrators because we have all the federal funds. So now we have top-heavy administrators, but we're not paying them for federal funds.
I understand that. However,
I'm glad I'm not on the board, you guys can deal with it. That's the biggest problem, everybody asks you, how come you got vice principals, how come you got all, right? I mean, that's a question that's asked every single year. And one of the answers was, because we have these people that gotta oversee these title funds. Well,
We have no opening on the board.
no, you don't, well, no, I seen the voting, there was all kinds of people there on that thing, I already voted.
Well, there's
we have
an
one
opening.
seat that,
Alicia Bush.
Oh, really?
Right.
Oh, well, good, Mike was more than willing. So,
Well, the Title I administrative part, the overseeing part, in a district, small districts, obviously you don't pay them out of that fund, but still in the job description, the administrator is assigned administrative responsibilities over that. And that's what the ODE and the department expect.
so Neil kind of just answered my question then, because that's what you have to tell somebody.
Yeah.
That even though the title fund's not paying for it, we still have to have benefits, so therefore,
Yeah.
okay, I understand.
You've done that, being a small school superintendent, you've been a federal programs director.
Wow.
I just
That is so different than what it's been for so long.
I was gonna say this for last, and I will, but I just never been able to look at a budget with this kind of beginning fund balance. Our goal was always, because of declining enrollment, because of loss of revenue, because of all these things, if we could end up with 10 or 12%, that was, yes, we can get through another year.
and I will say, 'cause this is my 5th budget, this is the highest it's ever been.
Yeah,
And it's not going to continue to stay this way.
It's not.
It's
And that's-
going to diminish.
that's the
Very
We'll
point.
get back here to these other, there's a lot of zeros back here for the next year.
Yeah, that's the point, is we're in a position where we can look to the future and
Right.
prevent some of the potential problems. But to spend that because it's there, and that's the only reason, I'm sorry, I'm getting carried away.
No, these are really good points, and we recognize, and Mr. Hawkins and I recognize, watching this, I've had some board members express to me, a little concern that we keep adding people from certain programs to the general budget. Meaning that at some point, there will have to be some layoffs and reductions, right? We all know this. We're hoping not to do that. We've been able to save money, put it in different accounts to be able to pay people and therefore save. But the days are coming when we will have to do some reductions.
Yeah, it's not always gonna be 9.9 billion.
No.
I'm gonna throw this in and then I'll shut up. In your budget message, you use the term competitive 2 or 3 times. We are being compared, this district is being compared with other districts in Eastern Oregon. And we're not the only ones who get to see this. So that competitive goal needs to be balanced. I'm not gonna go into it.
In wages and stuff. So recently we became aware that Kenny Baker School District and Vale School District just gave substantial raises.
Yeah, I had 2 teachers ask me, why wouldn't I get a job in Vail? I said, I don't know, why wouldn't you? If you can make 10 grand more, doing the same thing. I'm just saying,
That's what you want to do.
try and balance this, but it's not just money that we don't have to worry about spending, because we do have to worry about spending.
We also have some looming possible repayments that
Yes,
we don't know what's gonna happen.
exactly, and that's the whole contingency issue, is where is that gonna go, and nobody knows, so. It's a good problem to have, but not a good problem to have.
So I would say in my future here, I would never present another budget with that big of a.
I would say that would be pretty.
Just saying.
Well, it's dangerous to do that because then the unions are gonna say.
Well, absolutely, absolutely, but until we know.
I was beginning to think Mule was on union the way they were talking for a little bit.
There's always 2 sides to every story, and I've never seen it where one side is always 100% right. I've never seen that.
We're satisfied.
Or satisfied, yeah. Hey,
Okay, page 25 is Title 2A. Title 2A, I've adjusted to ODE's estimated allocations for next year. And then I've just budgeted off of Mr. Hawkins did the budget narrative for this year. So this is all professional development. Needs to go to that. That's what Title 2A funds are for. So no FTEs are paid out of that. However, there could be money that you'll see there budgeted for stipends.
That's through page 50.
Yes. And page 51, this starts Title 3. And I've also adjusted that allocation for ODE's estimate. Didn't go down very much, but it still went down. And then I budgeted based off of the Title 3 budget narrative that was submitted this year. And I understand that it could be a little bit different next year, but I'm seeing a trend where it technically really doesn't change that much, so I felt pretty comfortable. The thing about budgets that are crazy, I have to present it to you, and then the budget committee has to approve it, and then the board has to adopt it, and then 4 months later, ODE budget narrative is open to say how you're gonna spend your money. So it's kind of almost backwards, so my best guess.
So, I guess, again, I'm confused, Crystal, or maybe somebody from the board. So, why is ODE giving us the numbers for federal funds?
It's funneled through ODE. So federal funding goes to ODE.
Okay, but have they always done that, or is it something we've just, really?
U.S. Department of Ed funnels it through ODE, who then funnels it through the districts.
So the ODE is always giving us the numbers?
Since I worked here, I've always received
Oh, okay,
estimates from.
all right. I guess I never knew that, so I apologize.
I can't say before then, but I would imagine it hasn't changed.
I don't know how it happened, that's why I asked. Okay, thank you.
57 is our Title IV grant. And again, just with that one, adjusted the revenue based off of these estimates and budgeted based off of the budget narrative this year. Page 60 begins Title 1C.
Which looks better, by the way. That was the only one that's up, huh? That's the only one that's up?
It's gonna be going down.
My question is why are we budgeting?
I knew you were gonna ask.
I know.
So let me talk about Title 1C. Okay, so for fiscal year 22, which is not this year, it's last year, we had a carryover of $761,000 that we need to spend. You might ask, how did that happen? Well, it's because what we were spending, I claim the oldest grant money first, because that's the money that will expire the soonest. So even though we had wages for last year, I'm claiming it off of the 2021 grant to claim that money back. So that's how we had such a big carryover. So this budget accompanies that $761,000, and then I'm estimating off of our allocation this year, based off of our expenditures, we might have about $55,000 left over from this year's funding to spend next year. And then I've asked the state, reached out to them about funding for the future, because it's all based off of our migrant numbers, and I'm not exactly sure where we are with that, and I haven't heard back yet. I think there was supposed to be a meeting yesterday, they got canceled.
Rescheduled for next Wednesday.
Or rescheduled. So my best guess is the allocations that we finally hear about that we'll receive next year that we need to budget for. I need to put a budget amendment in front of the board and ask for the board's approval when we know what it is. Because I don't want to estimate our funding might be $800,000 and it comes in at $4. I don't want to over budget. And since I don't know that number, I felt it's more safe to budget what we already know we have, knowing as a committee it's gonna get cut in the future, we just don't know that number yet.
And they can't go back and take what you already.
That's what I was, my next question, I agree with Mom.
So the conversations, and Darren might wanna,
Yeah, let me jump in.
Yeah,
So
jump
I just received a call today from a person at ODE who said, give me a couple of numbers. I'm not gonna share those today in front of the committee yet, but they're gonna send an email. She wanted me to have preliminary numbers of what the reduction in our student numbers will look like. So when we signed up migrant students, felt like with, per the guidelines that were being followed at the time, there was, I think you all know about the investigation, so there was some investigating done and some of the families were removed, actually quite a substantial number, 277. You can write that number down, were removed. We had upwards of 700 plus in the consortium, Vail and Adrian have small numbers, less than 50 students per. And so the vast majority of those family students were in NISA, and so 277 of that number has been removed. So there's a per pupil expenditure attached to that. We're still learning about what years that affects, how many years of repayment that will be, or loss of funding. I think it will appear as loss of funding rather than repayment. So
Loss of funding in 1 year or over a period of years, we don't know that, okay?
How far back are they going with that? You kind of mentioned, well, the 277
students.
How many years back did they go?
The years they quoted me were the last 2 years.
Okay, but is there any kind of assurance that we're not gonna go back?
I don't have that assurance yet. I'm waiting for the email. That's a good question.
Okay, that
was my question.
Obviously should worry all of us. Yeah.
Yes. So yes, Martha.
and you said families or students?
Students.
Students, okay.
And then who runs it? This is run by, these programs are run by not the administrator, right?
So Gabe Point is.
So he runs that, right? So then he's gonna have to make the budget changes here, or does the administrator make those budget changes?
It's Grace, Crystal and I. Gabe works with this, but we also have to work with our consortium partners. So that's one of the things that ODE, during their investigation, said that we're the consortium lead. Like, we're the only district in the state that is a consortium lead. The other consortiums are run through ESDs. And so that responsibility is fallen to our federal programs director, or in my case, me, to lead the development of the budget narrative with Dale and Adrian. Even though they don't have very many numbers, they still need to be involved. They know how much money's there, where it's going, how it's serving students. And ODE informed us that we hadn't done that to the degree they wanted to see in the past. We thought we were, but it turns out that we weren't. And so in the development of the budget, we include Adrian and Dale superintendents, as well as Gabe and Crystal and their business managers too.
So they're all right now.
They're all involved.
So they'll be the ones making
And is the district's legal representation involved in this part of it, or?
So there's been some concern, and rightly so, by our school board, that, legal counsel is very expensive. And so the more they do, the more they cost.
Right.
And so a lot of it is they've been advising me that I do, so that they don't, so there's been some trying to reduce some of those costs, and it's been, not been fun, I'll be honest with you. Trying to negotiate that with ODE as DOJ, so the Oregon Department of Ed does not have attorneys on retainer. The attorneys for ODE is the Department of Justice. So that's why they've had a hold of it.
My concern is that when they look at your budget, they're gonna see what you budgeted for legal counsel.
They know that we have.
And you know when that's, anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on.
So I guess go ahead.
Well, my just big concern is that we budget all this money and I just don't wanna get more and more in where the district has to cover that, right? They're just saying, here's your open, like, we're gonna keep running it the same way we have and not look and say what changes we got, like, be a little proactive and try to figure out what we're gonna do, so that we've got all of a sudden got to pull some transfer funds somewhere.
So, but 63%, 65% of that budgeted money is carryover though, correct? So we really have only budgeted approximately $200,000 more than what our carryover is. Is that correct?
In this situation, yes. because I
Okay.
just don't know.
No, that's fine, and I think that's what all we know is the number. When you look at this as a budget,
Right.
remember, you don't
No, I
know
know.
all that.
I know.
All you know is this
Right.
number, right? You have no idea that 700,000 of that 908,000 is carryover.
Right.
So, in
And
keeping
I'd
with
just
that,
rather budget.
in keeping with that, you did a good job, in my opinion, of only budgeting $200,000, guys, instead of another
I agree.
700,000.
Yeah, in anticipation.
To tell you no, that's good. Because whether they take money from you or, because you're entitled to X to begin with. Yeah, you're entitled to X to begin with. You still have, you said 277 out of 700, you still have 500 students in the consortium that are entitled to 1C funds. So technically, that should be the top dollar that they're starting on, and whether they take that away in 1 year or partial or whatever, you're still gonna get that dollar figure, I would hope anyway. I guess that would be hopefully they don't just say, here you are one time, 'cause there goes your contingency again. Right, so, okay, well, I think we did a great job of budgeting it that way then. But when I looked at this, I'm thinking, holy smokes, guys,
You know,
we're budgeting more money than we're getting chastised.
I know.
So, all right, very good. I think it's very good. So,
I have a question real quick. Yes. So page 65, is that the personnel and the parent involvement community service, is that been going away? Or was it just moved to a different line item?
But,
Where are you at?
65?
Community service and parent involvement.
let me look at my current
Is
budget.
that the recruiter? I don't know.
Let me look at my current budget. I don't remember. I don't want to misspeak. I'll look it up.
So,
Because I
recruiter.
see like zeros.
Oh, there's no budget, 562.
mistaken.
What it
That's
was,
just some classified help, it's not there anymore.
Yeah.
and even sub-funds twos.
Those are all zeros now.
And that person just resigning.
We're trying to fill that position.
Oh.
Maybe another person there.
I think what has happened is, I think the FTE is still there, but I did try to go off of the budget narrative. And so when things are budgeted, because when we do our budget narratives, we have to put in the fund, the function, the object codes, which is what you're talking about. And so if it gets moved in the budget narrative, I'm trying my best to move it in our budget, so we're in line with our budget narrative. But remember, budget narratives come out after the budgets do, so. But there is a reduction in FTE for overall, because remember I removed, 0.5 of a IT person and 0.15 of a custodian, that we're not allowed to pay for that. So I think the person is still there, I think they're just in a different account, on a different page. In addition to 1C regular program, we have 1C preschool, and that begins on 67. So again, I didn't really know which way to go here. I'm estimating at the end of this year, we're gonna have about 36,000 carryover from this year's funding that we haven't spent. And then, I estimated allocations next year to be 58,000, I'm guessing, it's my best guess. But I don't have numbers, so.
So, how many students
In our preschool program,
in preschool 1C?
Well, 13.
20 I think is what we.
Is it 20?
Are they all 1C?
Max.
Yes.
Yeah.
Always in there.
Okay. Then we didn't get chastised for that one, did we? For not having the right,
Well, that's part of what they're looking into.
Okay.
You know,
I use the word chastised and I apologize. I mean, that's,
part of their,
that may not have been quite the right word.
we're trying to follow the procedures
Right.
that are outlined, even though we thought we were at the time, right? So-
Okay, I'm just saying, in this case, we budgeted for the same number. And are we going to get the same number based on the other one though?
The reduction in the.
Right, so, okay.
I think we are. I think the preschool is.
I'm hoping so. I mean, I guess I could go back and I could just budget the carryover, but then it's not gonna cover the wages of the staff person or any kind of consumables that they might need for the classroom. So then I'm looking at a transfer from the general fund, which we're going to get something, right?
Right,
I don't know
Okay.
exactly how much. And that could have been an over budgeted number. I could go back
now,
and,
if it's 13
decrease
students,
it.
it would be different than if it was 113
Right.
students.
this is very small.
13 students could be easily absorbed. If it falls under, if the guidelines that they give you for the rest of the school fall under preschool, you could be in trouble, but it's not that big a number, and it can't be absorbed, I guess, the way I look at it anyway, so, very good, that's fine, I think you,
Okay, moving on to page 71. This is our Ewing Sports Fund. Mrs. Ewing donated some things in her will to the district. All of the money that we received is to go to pay to play sports for our students. So this is just the balance from the end of this year carried over to next year, and this will just continue on until we spend all the funds. And I believe we only spent $1,000 of that this year, so that's the $1,000 difference from last year to this year.
When we say pay to play sports, that's not just the cost of sports, it's the cost of gear for kids too. So their shoes are expensive as all, you know. We try to find kids who are in need.
Yeah, sorry, I was using her quotes in her will, specifically pay to play sports. I guess I didn't know her, but I guess she was a big time sports person for herself.
You never missed a game.
On page 75, Oregon budget law requires me to budget 3 years of history. So some of these funds, we don't have any money because the grant went away, but I have to show it by law. So page 75, there's no money. This is a grant from the past. It's just for your convenience to look at. Page 77 is House Bill 2444. This is something that our FFA person applies for every year and receives. So that I budget for to keep it separate from the general fund. This is additional extended summer
So-
days. Yeah, I think it's like additional 30 days
It's summer
or something.
monitoring project.
Yeah, that's
Page 80 is our CTE Career Pathways Program grants that we receive. We're currently, as a district, receiving 4 grants: business, ag, welding, and CNA. And so I tried my best to take their budget narratives they submitted to ODE this year and apply their budget, like they're gonna send that next year. It's a little bit different, but this year we bought a vehicle, we're not doing that next year, so I adjusted it to, mainly it's travel. They travel places, go to conferences, and they spend things on supplies. On page 83, our early head start. This program employs 7 full-time staff. One of them is a supervisor, 6 of them are under that supervisor. We have a contract with OCBC, that's where the majority of our money comes from to fund this program. In addition, we have created 2 private pay spots in the program. And so that's where, when you see this, the first line, miscellaneous local funding, that's those 2 private pay spots, hopefully keep it full and keep that money coming in. And then our OCBC revenue. I'm really hoping the supervisor was really good at applying for COVID grants and received a lot of grants. And so we're in the black right now, so I'm hoping we stay there to start next year.
She was great at it, and Crystal was very helpful with that too, so don't sell yourself short on that either.
So the next page is just the expenditures. Our biggest expenditure of this program is wages and benefits. And then I have to budget something for diapers and wipes, and sometimes we get them later, I think.
I actually did a diaper run when taking costs, so.
There, and that's not diapers. On page 86, this is our preschool wellness program. This is a contract we have with the ESC, and it's just a $10,000 bill. And if you have questions, you can direct them to Mr. Hopkins.
Transportation. We, so after our route, we go and pick up their kids and then transport them down there, so it's with ESD, that's what we.
Is it the airport for
charge
that area?
Huh?
Is that what it is?
No, we pick up the kids
Oh,
here
here.
and we transport them down there.
Yeah.
It's our bill to ESD.
On page 90 is where we house our scholarship funding. In this account, we have multiple scholarships actually. We have Ford Scholarship, we have a Clarice Ford Scholarship, where we watch over. And then our food service program has created their own scholarship. So that's where the different funding is coming from. And then the expenditure side is just, once those scholarships are awarded, then that money goes to the colleges the students are attending. Checks aren't cut to students, we cut them to the colleges that they're going to.
All going to our local high school students.
And then, so the balance in that just gets carried over to the next year, so. On page,
Well, that's a good point, by the way, because they wouldn't go to online schools, they'd go to. I like that comment.
Just wanted to make sure.
Took a little bit to figure
I
out
mean,
what
I
you did,
guess
now it's all pretty
I-
sorry.
It was obvious, but.
I guess I should pull back my comment, you know what, I don't know, because I wasn't on the scholarship committee, so maybe this is more not the answer. Was it all the applicants, just the,
Yes. They were all.
Okay.
This is in person.
I didn't really think about that.
I asked more out of gratitude, thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Page 94, our ARP grant, this is, additional federal revenue that we received for our McKinney Bento program. So it's just a grant, it's a one-time thing, we have to spend it by the end of next year. So I budgeted it based on the budget narrative that was submitted when we first received the grant. And then after we spend it all, we won't see that money again. So page 97, this is the IDEA, the Special Education Federal Funding that got cut big time. And this is where I really had to do some adjustments. We normally pay 8 FTE instructional assistants out of this grant. I've had to move 2 of them to the general fund.
So tell me again, what it was cut, you already said it,
I know it was statewide when I went to my business manager meeting in February. They said every school will
Every
be
school.
getting cut. So I know it's based off numbers, and I don't know our student counts that well of who is what, so that might have affected it.
So Ryan, I'm sorry, Crystal.
You're okay.
I don't know if you know the numbers of our student numbers have gone down, but I do know that we have got quite a few high needs students that require a lot of services of adults. And in some cases, we've got 2 adults at a time with 1 child. And so that is why, I'm suggesting that we use $160,000 of our online school funds to continue to fund these, because to reduce the number of adults helping children is going to be real problematic for teachers and other students.
but this is probably federally instigated as opposed to. So I can understand the state of Oregon increasing revenue and
Right,
being part of
this
this.
is federal money.
Yeah.
And this whole entire grant goes to nothing but salaries and wages. We don't spend it on anything else.
Okay.
I see the classified, I don't, certified.
No, it's only classified IAs, IAs. On page 100, this is House Bill 4030. This is the grant we currently received this year for retention and recruitment. We will not receive it next year, so this is just for historical data for you to read. On page 103, this is another federally sponsored special education grant. The section 619 focuses on students ages 3 to 5. And it's a very small grant. So this year, I ended up budgeting double of what I budgeted for this next year because we had carryover to use. We didn't spend the money during COVID. And luckily enough, our grants, they give us, I think, 17, 24 months to spend them before they expire. So that's why this year's budget was double what next year's will be, because we have to spend that carryover now, and we won't have that next year. And that doesn't pay any of the salaries, it's specifically consumables. On page 106, this might be my second favorite part of the budget. Last year, the budget committee was awesome enough to let me add this to the budget. This is something I guess other schools do. This is not guaranteed revenue, so please note that first, but this gives me an option to budget it. And then if we receive, say, a local grant, then I'm not having to go to the school board with a budget resolution because I don't have an account number for it. So this just allows me to key it and then we can spend that grant. So I've divided it miscellaneous, local, state, and federal, and that's just a total guess.
You know what the history on that, in Crystal, as far as that before this past year? The history on the grants, I'm not seeing it here, but
Yeah, it was something I asked the budget committee for last year. We've never done it before. Every single time I've gone to the board and said, here it is.
So they just did that, okay. Thank you.
And that's not to say that I won't inform the board, but Greg's forgetting, it's just I don't have to do it before.
Right.
And I got that idea off of my mentor from the ESC. And, Ryan just said you guys were not as excited as I needed you to be.
That is exciting! I kind of fell flat, and I was like,
Crystal's excited.
It's a delayed reaction.
now you watch it.
I'm concerned that you're scared to come to the board.
That I'm scared to go to the
Yeah,
board?
you didn't wanna come to the board and ask for all that.
It makes it easier for her, right?
Yeah.
It's so much easier to just verbally say it than do all that other stuff.
Yeah.
But I will let them know, I promise. Okay, page 109, this is our Student Investment Act. Some people know it as the SSA, Student Success Act, because we have to have so many acronyms in education. So my notes on this one, I've adjusted the revenue per ODE allocations. Now, please note, this is state revenue, not federal. This is kind of directly from Oregon. This funding, I moved the counselor back to the general fund. And, let's see, we had hired last year, I believe it was a position called District Emotional Support. And that person has indicated it would be nice to have a little bit of a budget, not just nothing. And I don't want him to use my budget. So I've added a little bit of a budget for consumables and also a program that was wanting to be purchased. I'm gonna have Ryan or Darren help me there because I don't remember all the, but I think something about
It's an SEL curriculum, so to grow that one, it's actually so teachers have support teaching social emotional learning. Cool. And so it is for a program that teachers can go in and actually identify some needs. If they have some kids go on and fill it out or learn some things as well. So it is for curriculum support for social emotional.
Crystal, was that in the state school fund instead of was it additional?
This one right here.
Traditional, the state,
This is
the
separate.
state money, but it's separate from the
Yes,
state school
it's
fund.
not state school money, it's separate.
I don't know, here, also go ahead.
No, you're about to answer my
The
question.
year that the Student Success Act came into being, Pat, I don't know if you remember what year that was, but we had to do a lot of community engagement about what the community surveys and everything, what people wanted to see, how we spend this money. You notice that the playground, I think it was playground. Teachers, additional counselors, nurses.
So is it based on student enrollment or is it based on application? Or is it based on high needs or what's the criteria? That's okay.
I think the state uses it by our student enrollment.
That's what I was.
That's how they split the money every week. They just tell us.
So everybody gets some.
Yes.
I'm not familiar with the forecast, Crystal, but I know it increases.
Off the top of my head, I am not either, but I am curious, but I'm writing a note and I'm gonna find out.
You do great.
So is it based on a House bill?
I
Yes?
don't know if it's a Senate bill or a House bill.
Well, okay, but it's
It
legislative.
is legislative.
Okay.
It's an additional tax on businesses. And
Yeah.
I believe it's above a certain number of employees.
Yeah, we're all paying.
You're all paying.
I mean, there it is a certain amount of places, it's like, it's 25.
25, yeah. I agree, I think it's 25.
It's a big increase on health insurance, is that $50,000? Is that?
On page 113, the health insurance, how come that went up so much? Just that one.
I'm sorry, what? did you ask?
113.
Let's look. Oh, that's what we added.
We added one FTE, but is that?
I can tell you, because we have an individual that's currently on payroll that opts out of insurance and receives that incentive. But this individual will be of an age where they can no longer do that, and so they will need to get on insurance and get the insurance. The insurance cap.
So their insurance is just really, really high.
It's really, really low right now.
Wasn't there.
But now we have to
They
pay.
were on their parents' insurance.
Thank you.
Now they gotta be,
They were on their parents and now they have to be a grown up and have their own insurance. And now we all know who it is. Page 115, and this is kind of a long one. This is ESSER 2. We no longer have this funding. We've spent it all. So we can just blow through that. It was a long budget. We're going all the way to page, sorry, 123.
123.
So on page 123 is ESSER 3 funding. So this is the funding that we're funding the high school HVAC project with. And then the state came and said 20% of that has to go to unfinished learning. So that's where we're paying one FTE out of that account, because their job is to help with unfinished learning. And then the rest of that 20% is going towards our math curriculum adoption.
Please tell me what unfinished learning is. I'm 63 years old and I haven't.
Well, what they did was they determined that students suffered quite a bit of the online learning, and so they wanted to say, what can you add to children's education?
So this position will go away when the rank goes away?
Well, she was previously in the general, so we did this. It's a switcheroo for a year. Yeah.
And then after this coming year, we'll use all the money, then we want to talk about it again. Okay, on page 131, this is our Title I summer school warrant that we received. Okay.
I want to know how come it appears to me that the budget is steady from last year. Why are we charging twice as much for individuals to attend summer school if our budget is still the same?
It's the state's too.
Yeah, it is, it's a state requirement. So what we learned during this minor investigation is that we were supposed to be charging non-migrant students full cost of attendance, and we were not charging full cost of attendance. I think we were charging $200. Full cost of attendance is over $80. And so the ODE did that calculation, did that looking and said, hey, you guys are doing this right. Even though, and we said, listen, ODE had told us, we never know that. So if that's how we do it going forward, that's how we do it going forward. But
How did the auditors miss that?
you know, I don't know that. I guess
Because they have to follow the same rules that everybody else, and they know what's required by the state, assuming that. So how did they miss that? It should have shown up in your audit.
well, it wasn't just missed it. It was 20 years. I think it's been over 20 years that it has been that way. As long as you know. And
I've been to a board meeting, is that why they do the auditing system? Is that, we're talking about the same people that we had to get a new auditor because they do the auditing system?
the auditor, well, that's an audit for the whole district, but yes.
Well, is that a fair question though? Because the state law is the auditor is checking to see if you're following the law in your funding. And they're going through the numbers. So that.
Well, if that's the case, it was missed for 20 plus years, so.
I think the auditors, after more consistency of the numbers, not so much as
Yeah.
where those numbers are
Yeah,
coming from.
compliance with that.
Right, I don't think that the accountant on the auditor, or whoever you happen to have, he's just a bean counter. I don't think it has anything to do with.
I think it would be hard for any attorney to say the district did this on purpose. If they would have known, obviously, they would have done it.
Once it was brought to our attention.
Exactly.
We said, we didn't know that.
Yeah.
Because when I first got here, I was shown a letter by Gabe Fuentes from the director of federal programs at ODE that gave a glowing report of our summer school. So we were unaware, right?
Yeah.
That we were supposed to be charging what we were. Because what we learned is that migrant funds are not supposed to be subsidizing non-migrant students. The migrant funds are to benefit migrant students only.
And the non-migrant are charged more based on the fact that they're non-migrant.
Yeah, so the full cost of attendance needs to be over $800. That's what we figured last year. And so that's the amount we're using this year, and it's going to be upsetting to a lot of people who see that. Because they're used to something else.
So what, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So year to year though, with costs rising, that number isn't gonna rise?
Potentially will go up.
Okay.
So how are we budgeting virtually the same if we're not being?
Well, so, we have carryover. So we did not, we spent all of our Title I summer school money, but 36,000 last year. So, right, the goal is to spend that this year, but then are we gonna spend that plus our entire grant? I don't know, and so I'm budgeting that carryover. So really, I've decreased it to $282,000.
Oh.
Like I say, 25%, because I bought $400 worth of clothes, right? Yeah, I've heard the story before.
I mean,
It's a good second.
if you're not, are we comfortable with that number? I mean, I don't know. It's hard when I don't know what allocations are gonna be.
No, I don't know, fully understandable, fully understandable, you have no idea what they're gonna do or say. Yeah, fully understandable, I just, again, going through the budget, all I see is a number, I don't know any of the rest of that. I don't know the history behind or why or what. I do know that a number of people have asked me, well, how come for years we didn't have to do this, now all of a sudden I'm paying $800 to send my kid to summer school, my non-migrants. Okay.
It's upsetting, we understand. We'll let them know who to complain to.
Yeah.
Dave?
So with,
Don't send them
the
to
private pay preschool or early head start. Some of those can be ERDC, the child employment related daycare payments from DHS. For summer school, can parents use ERDC to pay for part of
that
the?
800 or whatever.
Yes,
I would have to ask, I don't.
I don't know, that's a good federal law
Because-
question.
if the kids are under the age, I think 12 or 10 or 12, I can't remember, families could qualify for that if they're within the income guidelines of the state assistance. And it is childcare in a sense, but it's also instruction.
Let me, I will find out.
That would help low-income families that are not migrant eligible.
I don't know that answer, but I'll find out. I'll let everyone know. Good question.
Numbers.
After summer school, on page 136 is our summer food program. So that last year we merged into just our food service program,
Okay, so
Fund
we're not
299.
We're not gonna feed kids this year.
We are going to feed the kids, but we're not going to feed them from this fund.
Oh, so that, okay.
So yes, there is going to be food service, but I've combined it with food service from Fund 299.
So what page is that again?
That was page 136.
Right, okay.
So if we skip to 140, we're now at measure 99. It's called the outdoor school grant. This is through Oregon State. Everyone knows that on campus is a fifth grade field trip. So this is the grant we received from OSU. When the application was submitted this year, we received, I think it was almost double per student than we've ever received in the past. So I'm anticipating that that is still going to be the case moving forward, and that's why you see the huge jump in the amount. And that is where they go on a field trip that's approved.
And did they have them?
They did everything. Yeah, everything went well. I know there was some concern, but everything went
You
well.
need to say cost to go with the cost.
I know, you worked so hard on it.
I remember lots of conversations with yours too.
So I had some people ask about this, what the history of this was. It used to be, the fifth grade field trip was part of the fund. During non-grading, when the mid-2000s, when everything crashed, he said every field trip is gonna be approved by me and the board. Since then, the fifth graders have come to the board every year and said, hey, whoa, we'd like to do this. And every year we say yes, but it was never budgeted. So, that's why
Gotcha.
that whole process of the fifth graders having to have that extra. Now, I mean, I see there's a fund. It's nice to see the fifth graders show up, but it's not really necessary anymore, is it not?
Well, they still have to ask permission to go.
Yeah, if it's overnight, they have to have some additional overnight, yeah.
Based on
They
what?
don't have to ask to spend the money,
Based on what?
but they have to have permission to, it's
Policy,
policy.
anything overnight.
I bet if you
Overnight
see
out
it,
of state, so you're right, I actually had an issue with, there was a high school CTE class who did not come before the board, and she said, I've never come before the board, I didn't know I was supposed to come before the board, because I think they were gonna go to Florida or DC or something. And so we started researching policy, there's not policy.
I think it's been a practice, but I'm not sure that it's a policy.
It's not a policy.
It's evolved though, you know, it started
We wanted
in the
to-
70s for people who are really old here.
We just went camping.
I was alive in the seventies.
No,
used to go to, what was
It
that?
was called outdoor education.
Sixth grade.
Sixth grade, and we would start at the beginning of the year, the board was aware of it.
Right.
But they didn't officially put it on the agenda or any of that. And the cost for that trip came out of the elementary budget. Came out of, just came out, I don't know where it came from, but it was paid for out of that and the transportation. Because we coordinated with the Burton River School District in case we needed their gym. We stayed for 3 or 4 days, take sixth graders up there and do that. Anyway, that's how it started and it evolved. But I don't know that it was ever in a policy or any of that. So when I hear you say that, now you're getting funding from Oregon State University, I'm impressed. Yeah. Cool, Brad.
Ballot measure like 6 years ago.
It was.
Yeah, that's
Thanks for
great.
99.
Very good.
The things I
It
know.
was after 1970.
Because I am on one of the original email lists, so for that.
Are you?
committee. I don't know how I got on it, but, so I did all the information before some of the teachers do in our district.
That's cool.
I love learning things. Okay, if we go to page 143, this is measure 98. This is our high school success fund. I guess gonna laugh at me, but the reason why our budget was so much more this year is because we had, I think almost $100,000 from last year's grant that we had to spend by September 30th of 2022. So that's why that budget is high, but we will be receiving, these numbers are solid from the state, $378,000. So that's why there's an increase. So from this, we have a lot of different people paid from this fund. Sorry, I'm jumping my notes here. The budget narrative that was submitted to ODE that was due March 31st of this year for next year's funding, it did add a 0.5 FTE to this budget that I believe will be housed in the high school. So I know Megan had a question earlier of like, hey, how are you gonna, is your position in the business office like a 0.5? So like, Crystal's perfect world, maybe it could be the same person. I don't know if that would work out, but the business office will be looking for a 0.5 person.
Yeah, that was gonna be a 0.5 classified IA or alternative school. So if they have diverse abilities.
Yeah, I'm sure. So that was kind of my thinking, but I don't know if it'll work out. And then the remainder of this grant, I took right from the report that was submitted to ODE on how the high school was going to spend this money. And so that's, if you have questions about those numbers, yes, you can ask Mr. Jackman, because I took it directly from his report on how we're spending these funds next year.
That's what I understood.
So No one has questions for Okay. On page 146, this is a grant that we no longer receive, so that's just for fun reading. Page 149, this is a grant that we have previously received and are receiving this year. However, we are not eligible for this small rural schools grant next year. So it is, I have budgeted as a 0 for next year. Page 152, it's our PERS fund. I think this happened before I started, but the budget committee and boards wanted to put away some money for PERS because the rates are crazy. So we're not adding to that this year. It's just carrying the balance from this year to next year. After our PERS account is the SMILE program, so this is also a partnership with Oregon State University. They give us some money, and then on the flip side of that, we have to support the rest of the program with our general fund. So that's one of the transfers that was made from the general fund that's budgeted to this program. It is quite a big jump in increase because this SMILE extra duty contract stipends that they receive are now in the certified bargaining contract on the pay scale. And so that's the big increase there. Also, they now are allowed to travel again. They weren't allowed to go anywhere because of COVID, and now they can go to do challenges and things, so that their travel budget has increased. We have a SMILE club in elementary, middle school, and high school. And 2 advisors in each school.
We take a 5-minute break, a lot of people have to go.
I got page 163. Yeah.
I didn't run to the bathroom. I gotta go. I couldn't hold it for phone.
5 minutes. You have till 8:25. You really need to go. Almost done.
I knew it.
I don't know about
Tired of this?
That was the last year. 98 was, 97 or 98 was the first year. The toughest one was the one that they were talking about when that thing went.
current job in
5 in 2006. The economy crashed. That was a tough one.
and
Not near as tough for us in the budget board than most of the school boards.
was his dates on the
We just have to see.
was his date this year?
Yeah.
Reverse?
That way.
I
started good high school. And then this was a superintendent.
Yeah.
Trisha, which I went through and did like ordinance to be background check and.
Yeah, I missed, I think I missed 1 year.
And it's like.
I didn't miss the year I had
Had
cancer.
people from schools too.
The year I think the actual were on.
And none of the big chaperones or workers had done that check.
And so
And
right
they
now,
had 37 kids.
Wow.
Just, we had a lot
I know.
of kids, but no, we had 15 kids in the and just tried all of the
They don't go. Because we were asking him. We had one girl.
That's just what so I have So-
Shut us here. So he wanted to go as a supervisor, so he said, we have to let just one girl shut us. Guess what he wants to do?
So I know you talked about
well, 'cause- so they did that for the Boise State, and they did this astrology lab, astronomy lab, and then they did that, well, I'm surprised they didn't so and then they did the boats where they put them on the icebergs and let the kids decorate boats. They put them on the iceberg with kids markers and like QR codes so then they could see how like the water.
So glad I don't
It was actually kind of cool. And then they were going to the natural gas plant in.
Oh, that one. Yes. Crazy, because that's like really secure and.
Well, I'm going. I get to go.
Yes.
And I'm surprised they're not.
That's all I
It was like take a plate and cover it up. We like.
Do what?
Remember that's what you said, right?
We're just gonna get rid of it.
Take out the popular. Well, like here it is. Well, I did, but.
Okay, we have 1 minute.
You just asked for a break, now you're telling us.
I said you had 5 minutes, and I have 1 more. I was telling her about the smile filter. I was telling her, I don't know if you remember. 1 year, I can't remember when it was. She was Sonia's little sister. And she got lost at the airport. And so the next year, you went. And so I said, the only dog to watch was 1 year. And she got lost again.
Under my watch?
She would like to start.
Well, I don't have the luxury to retire. I made too many mistakes in my life.
Well, that girl happened. You think, you didn't want to hold her hand.
Somebody didn't want to buy me out.
We did that, and they actually.
Owen Barrett, you're the
As soon as we found them, they were away. So I'm doing stuff.
So I know.
have another money. I've seen Owen or heard from him in a long time. Oh, he did? I didn't know that. Well, I wonder if I haven't seen anything. Last spring? I didn't know that. Actually, I worked for his brother and nephew, Jordan Alfred. Daryl? Dale. Dale, there you go. Oh, wish you hadn't asked me.
I want to say.
Yeah.
I started with G, but.
Oh, on my phone, so I can look it up on my phone. But I got it on my phone.
It's all my fault.
He told you to do it.
You're okay. I would have just kept going too. We're getting close. Okay, so we're on page 160. This is our bus replacement fund. This is where we're building this account to buy new buses. There's requirements approaching that we have to meet.
Ballpark, how much does this cost?
Depends on the side. 180. 180 will get you one, but so we're required by the state to get rid of all diesel. So I'll have to go with propane. Looked into electric, which is almost 270 something. Without the current infrastructure to support that. Like even because we always go to build or oh gosh, where is that at? Departments didn't fix them. Right now they can't even fix them. So anyway, that's
We're not buying an electric bus yet. I know you want to, but if you want to fix them.
yeah.
Did we total diesel?
Diesel yesterday. Yeah.
Surprisingly, that was almost the.
That was
Was it? I got hit.
So, yeah.
108, what you said? 108.
That was one scheduled to replace it next.
That's
It's
a
like
great
idea.
For us. Okay,
Yeah.
108, not bad.
Yeah.
180.
So we'll get the insurance money for us.
So that's our bus replacement fund. Revenue fund 163, which is our student body funds. We keep these separate from our general fund and all of our grants. We actually have a separate bank account for our student body funds. And we average, they've done really well because we're back in school and they're fundraising and increasing their account balances. So I moved their beginning fund balance up to, we're almost about $300,000 from between all three schools in student body funding. And then on page 299. Fund 299. I'm sorry. Oh, you guys are listening. Sorry, 166. I'm sorry. Page 166. Fund 299. Sorry, so many numbers. So this is food service, and this also includes summer school food service numbers, revenue, expenditures. We don't separate it out anymore. I'm projecting, right now they're sitting at about $52,000 in the black ending the end of March. I'm hoping by the end of June they'll be about 40 to bring over for their beginning fund balance. Still have 11 FTE in that department. And I actually learned that the state kind of says how many employees you can have based on how many meals you're serving and the attendance or not ADM at your district. So thought that was interesting
So,
and thought I'd share that with you.
are we having, with our black, are we fiscally more responsible in our meal making, or are we increasing students eating, or both? We have been in the black for 20 years.
Yeah,
She was
Well,
proud of what she got into the black on this.
she is proud,
Best
she
day
should.
of my life. I hate reporting red numbers.
Especially in that department.
We hired a chef.
That's number two. That's all number two.
I let it work.
Okay, that's what I want to know, because it's only been the last 2 to 3 years that we turned that around. So I'm assuming that business manager is cracking the whip hard enough that it's getting done. But I'm just curious on numbers. So basically, we know how to count meals too now, right?
We know how to count meals. We're capturing more high school students that aren't going off campus.
Good.
Food's better.
Yes, that's
I don't
It's
say.
good.
It's true.
He goes above and beyond.
So is he cooking, we're helping cook for the other schools, these great meals, or just the high schools?
Right, so I know, I think, gosh, I don't want to speak for them and I don't want to speak for him, but I know once a week, at least once a week, we're doing a homemade lunch for all campus wide. The struggle is we do not have kitchens that are like the kitchen in the cafeteria at every single building, and there's only one of him. And we don't,
Transporting food is hard.
transporting food is hard. And the different level of, it's a challenge as well. Shut up, Brian. You guys know what that means, right? Like, you guys know what that means. And I don't think one individual person could cook for 1,100 people a day, 2 meals a day. That's all I got. You're terrible. I would like to point out, Dave, though, I did decrease their food budget because I think I got really scared when the increases were going so much that I over budgeted this year because I looked at where they're at right now, added like 2 more months of expenditures, and I gave them way too much money, so took it away. So,
I did have a question on it, but it wasn't out of the ordinary. You could tell it was the black, I think. But I didn't think the number was. It was up, but I don't think it was out of reason. I know it was. Especially when you have no idea what food costs or anything else.
what's your question?
She has a really good question.
Well, I know you say it's 1 day a week, district-wide, these meals, but I mean, potentially, if the person with the expertise, like, maybe rotates, and it's not just like, could be like one day a week at the middle school, like a different day of the week at the high school, like a different day of the week. So
That is an excellent
it's
suggestion.
just training,
Tell the supervisor of that program.
and I'm just thinking like training like on site at the school, like this is how I want to be done.
If,
Skills like
I'll pass that along, just stop. I'll stop. I will pass that along, yes. My background is food service, so it's my part. Also remember though that maybe the target on the high school is because they have the option to leave campus where our other two schools don't. And so that is really where we can capture more revenue. And I understand the quality too, but I think getting here, redirecting the program a couple of years ago was just, let's focus on getting out of the red. Because when we're in the red, the general fund was supporting that. So when there's 75,000 in the hole, we're having to transfer money to that account. So hopefully more happens. But I'll pass that along. Okay, page 170 is our debt service fund, and I did get asked what's that for? That is our new middle school. That's the bond that we have for the middle school. We have a whole separate account that our taxes go in, our local county taxes that get deposited into that account, and it is saved just for our debt service. We pay that payment twice a year.
What's the overall cost of this to do
Should we get all of them up for the middle school ball then?
Oh,
this? 12 million, 20 million, I don't know where we are.
no, six something million, over 6 million.
6 million.
I can get,
Oh, I just.
I think it's a 20-year loan, I believe. I'll look. Yeah. I'll report at the, maybe.
From the state, what did it just cost us for it? More next year,
More than that. Started with 12 people. We had 14. So it was almost 14, but we had about $1.5 million. We got 4 from the state, and we bonded 8.
So I'll check the balance and report on Monday, but, yeah, that's good, because it happened before I got here, so.
Oh, you were here.
Just, I would hear at the tail end. Shh, here at the tail end. Okay, and finally, our very last fund, page 174. This is our fund 440. Michael, this is what you were talking about. We combined all our 400 funds into one. So I'm estimating our beginning fund balance is going to be $795,000. And then we need that $1.7 million to be transferred in for the HVAC project. Also, our LGIP account gains that interest, and so a portion of that interest goes into this account. So that's what that $45,000 is at the top. And then if we go to page 175, here's where I'm budgeting improvements other than buildings and then other capital outlay. So that's kind of the existing budget for that $795,000 and then plus the HVAC. And so finally, on page 177, this is proposed budget, this is everything. This is the revenue coming in, 36.6 million, and if you flip to the next page, that's our expenditures going out, 36.6 million. And that, my friends, is a balanced budget.
Very good.
Very good.
I guess I'm going to eat dinner now. What other questions? Anything?
Not to push things, but Crystal, I want to say you did a marvelous job. And as I told you earlier today, I've been in business a long time, I'm retired, but over that time I've done 24 years, 25 years of budgeting with different business managers. You won't find a better business
No,
manager.
find a better one.
So, free order.
Thank you. I'm trying to make it fun so Ross stays on longer.
No, this is it.
What's your last year?
He's done.
Been here since '96. Well, I missed 1 year. That wasn't the year I had cancer, it was the year after.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Well, thank you for that.
So anyway, thank you for your well-organized presentation. Thank you, Mr. Jones, for your well-organized presentation. Thanks, Ryan, for you're well organized. I just enjoy working with people who can deal with hard things and still have fun at the same time. And I know that there's plenty of challenges here. Trust me, there are a lot of school districts that would love to trade places right now.
Financially.
Otherwise,
Personnel wise.
in many ways. I mean, you go anywhere in Eastern Oregon or in Oregon and compare school districts. This is an outstanding school district, and it's because of the people like you and people who've been before us that have done these things. So thank you for that. Are there any patron comments?
I appreciate you guys' input and questions. You guys have some really good questions.
One question that I forgot to ask, the shop clocks,
Yes.
that is budgeted from last year?
So that is not in like a high school co-curricular budget. I would assume that would come out of our Fund 440 fund. Unless this committee has a different idea.
Which it should only be about 10,000. So
Oh.
I'm re-signing a contract with Pepsi and they're donating 15,000. It's actually gonna be less because they actually got a better
Did you check
deal
with
than what we
Coke?
did. I checked with Coke and I tried to go through Coke and anyway, so I got good bids for all of them. And so, but yeah, we're gonna go with Pepsi and so that's. Yeah.
It's within the number you gave
Yes.
before.
I move that we accept the budget as proposed.
It's been moved that we accept the budget as proposed. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded that we accept the budget as proposed. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. You're on camera. All opposed? Budget has been approved. And if there aren't any other questions, this meeting is formally adjourned.
You guys only get one day.
I know. I can't be here next